Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltore of Have Roots Will Travel, and I'm delighted that you came to share this time with me. We are exploring the life of another Fille Mariée who braved an ocean to come and, basically save New France. So we are ever so grateful. Les Filles Mariées came between 1634 and 1662. So they were super, super early onto the history of Quebec. So without them, there wouldn't have been perhaps the Filles du Roi, because it wouldn't, the colony would not have thrived. It was limping along as it was. I can just imagine if they hadn't shown up. So with that being said, we will be, I decided in 2023 to be able to look at all of the Filles Mariées. There's about 262 of them, much less than the Filles du Roi, but still very, very important in the telling of the tales. And before I let you go, I want to make sure that I let you know about supporting the channel. Subscribe, like, and notify. All of that helps the algorithm and all that good stuff. So I appreciate you being able to do that for me. And if you want to go further and support the channel, there are a couple ways to do that. You have the memberships that you can click on in the notes below. It gives you all kinds of perks and things like that. And then you have the PayPal button on my website if you just want to directly donate. And also we have the super thanks on an episode that you particularly like. You might want to, share your enthusiasm and super thank me, which is kind of like a tip. So thank you so much to all of you who have done that. So without further ado, let's get started and get to know our Fille Mariée of this episode. Today we're going to look at Les Filles Mariées, episode 135, Francoise Morin. And of course she comes to us at the request of a viewer. Thank you so much for suggesting Francoise. I did not have her in my files, so let's get to know Francoise a little bit better. Francoise was born in 1626 in La Rochelle, France. Her parents were Jean Morin and Jeanne Denouet. Now, of course, La Rochelle, being such a large city, is found in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region, and it is part of the Charente-Maritime. We've talked about La Rochelle many, many, many times in this series. Now, she is from a particular church that I have not explored. It's called Saint-Jean-du-Perrot, and this church, founded in the 12th century, served the city's bustling harbor district, and it ministered to sailors and merchants and fishermen. It really stood as a symbol of faith and community in a city that was truly shaped by the sea. Though the original church suffered damage over the centuries, including a devastating explosion in the 16th, it was rebuilt and remained a landmark until the late 1800s. Today, only the bell tower of Saint-Jean-du-Perrot stands, but what a beautiful tribute to a church that has withstood over millennia. And La Rochelle, as many of you know, was a very, very important part of of France, and obviously of New France, because so many immigrants came from this port or left from this port. And it was an amazing city in terms of the trade and the back and forth between New France and La Rochelle. So it really was a vibrant and very, I would say, educated city where people knew how to make things happen. So if you're from La Rochelle, I think to myself, they would have been, it would be like coming from New York City in this day, or Montreal, or today Montreal, or Toronto for that matter, and really feeling like you are a mover shaker. So I have this feeling that Francoise, being from La Rochelle, kind of said, let me go to New France and let me see what's there is to see. So we believe that Francoise would arrive in New France sometime in 1647, very, very early. So the groom that she would select and who would select her, his name, Antoine Pelletier. Now he was born in 1616 in a place called Bressolette, France. His parents were Éloi Pelletier and Françoise Mat. His brother was Guillaume Pelletier. So that's important to know. Now, Brezonette is a small rural community located in that Orne department of the Normandy department. Many of you know that so many people came from this exact department, particularly the Montagne aux Perches, and but certainly Brezonette is a place that was definitely part of that emigration pattern, and it is known for the natural park, the regional of Perche, so it's very, very close to that. It's got the usual beautiful, peaceful atmosphere, and you can see in the picture how it's very, very quaint. The village is home to what is known as Église Saint-Denis, which is a small parish church dating back to the 16th century and reflected the simple yet enduring architecture that has stood the test of time. Brezonette is also notable for its proximity to the Forêt de Reynaud-Veldieu, a large forested area historically used for timber and hunting. This connection to nature is part of the village's heritage, making it such an appealing spot for those who, in their genealogical travels would seek a tranquil and a taste of traditional rural life in France. So this is where Antoine and his brother came from. I believe that the Petit brothers, Guillaume and Antoine, would arrive in New France eager and absolutely able to work. They were here as of 1646, I believe. So let's have a look at the marriage that took place. On August 19th, 1647, Francoise would marry Antoine in a simple ceremony in Quebec City. Can you imagine how old that document is? But there is their marriage record. Absolutely amazing. An unspeakable tragedy. Just literally weeks after their wedding, on October 2nd, 1647, Antoine would be drowned in the Montmorency Falls near his home, where his canoe overturned. He was buried the next day at Quebec City. Just absolutely, absolutely tragic. So here she is alone in a brand new world, and what's she going to do? Second groom that would come into her life. His name was Etienne Demers, and he was born in 1626. He also came from Normandy, but from the Dieppe region, which is part of the Seine-Maritime. His parents were Jean Demers and Miotte Lecomte. Now, Dieppe in Normandy is a historic port city with a long maritime tradition. Since the Middle Ages, it's been a hub for fishing and trade and shipbuilding. By the 17th century, Dieppe was an important departure point for explorers and missionaries and settlers heading to New France. The city has seen its share of hardships, including a devastating English raid in 1694, and at the heart of Dieppe is the Church of Saint-Jacques, a beautiful late Gothic church dating back to the 12th century. This is where Etienne would have been baptized. Now, many of those who sailed to New France likely prayed there for a safe journey. This was a big deal. The Saint-Jacques Church, I cannot stress enough how important it was to the eventual emigrants that came from this area to New France. This was all they knew. And you can see how beautiful the shoreline and how historic Dieppe really was. So let's have a look at his journey. So the entire Demers family would actually move and come to New France. They did not stay. The father and mother did not stay the whole time. They did return to France, but their children remained, as notably Etienne. On January 28th, 1648, Francoise married Etienne Demers, and obviously this was a big, big relief for her. You can only imagine. She had been widowed approximately 3 months prior, so she would have needed the support of someone like Etienne, and also his family was there as well. So I suspect that it was, the inclusion of her into the Demers family would have been something that she was extremely grateful for. Would eventually settle at Sillery, which is now one of the boroughs of Quebec City, but for well over 3 centuries, it was its own independent city. In 2002, Sillery, along with other small cities, was amalgamated into the larger region of Quebec City. Sillery was first established as Canada's first Indian reserve. It was first named Saint Joseph, and the money for establishing the first settlement was provided by Noël Boulard de Sillery. Unfortunately, the native population fell victim to disease and other issues, and the reserve failed. The town was eventually named Sillery in honor of its benefactor, and would become an important player later on in Quebec's lumber industry. On the upper left of your screen is a picture of Sillery's riverfront. Look how beautiful it is. It's just astonishing. And I've included a map of where Sillery is, and also on the top right of how it has become, or not on the top right, on the bottom left here, where it is in terms of the rest of all of these towns would have become amalgamated in 2002 into Quebec City. Now, one of the most important parts of Sillery is the Maison des Jésuites de Sillery, or the Jesuits' House of Sillery. A fort was created here in the mid 1600s and would have been present during their time. So that's kind of a really, really neat thing to think about when you visit. This is the place I missed on my last visit, and it's definitely on the top of my list the next Quebec visit that I do. They would go on to have 8 children. The first 4 children would pass away before the 1666 census. Absolutely tragic. Finally, Etienne would marry Jeanne Francoise Menard, and they would have 5 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Jeanne Francoise's mother was Catherine Forestier, that we profiled in Fille Marie number 14. You can see the link in the notes. Joseph would marry Marguerite Guiteau and have 5 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. He then married Marguerite Perra and had 2 children with her, both of whom survived. And then he married Marie-Françoise Petit and had one more child, and that child did survive. So that was really interesting. Eustache would marry Catherine Perra and would have 6 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Catherine's mother was a Fille Marie Denise Lemaitre, who we profiled in episode 85 of the Fille Marie, and her link is in the notes as well. Francois would marry Jeanne Renée, and they would have 2 children, but all 2 would survive. Such a tragedy. Francoise would pass away sometime after 1663 and before the 1666 census. She was not yet 40 years old, and she and Etienne would not have been married more than 20 years, less than 20 years actually, but she would leave us a legacy of 130 descendants. Just amazing what her legacy was like. And you can see in the 1666 census, there's Etienne, and then we have Etienne, Joseph, Francois, and then he has a domestic working for him, and he has 4 beasts, cattle, and he has 19 arpents à malheur, about 16 acres of land. In the 1667 census, we get even more of a sense of the family. We have habitant veuf, that means widower, and then all of his sons are there. And then finally we have a domestic who is a different domestic than what was a year before. And then we have another domestic. So he's got 2 people working for him as well to help raise the family and be able to carry on. Etienne would not remarry. He would, however, move to Saint-Augustin de Demers, one of my favorite places. I visited there on my last trip. And it's one of the oldest parishes in New France. It was founded by 1691. It's located just west of Quebec City along the St. Lawrence River. And the area was actually originally granted as a seigneurie to Charles de Lauzon. Charny in 1647. It was named after St. Augustine and the Demers family, who were significant landowners and early settlers. So even though 1691 is the official date, in its early years, St. Augustin de Demers was a rural agricultural community with settlers primarily engaged in farming, fishing, and fur trading. Today, St. Augustin de Demers maintains a very strong connection to its colonial past, with many historical buildings and landmarks that reflect the deep roots of this community. In fact, this is a tiny community, but you know, they had 13 filles du roi that would settle here. That's an extraordinary amount of a pioneer stock, as it were. In the 1681 census, we see Etienne. He is now at this point, he's a carpenter, and we have Eustache and Francoise living with him. They have 2 goats, and they still have about 14 probably 12 acres of land. Finally, Etienne would pass away at a remarkable age of 80 at the hospital in Quebec City. So it's just an incredible life, you know. I mean, he came from such a long way away. He came with his family. He, you know, met a woman that he loved, had children, and yet he lost her and did not replace her. I think that's a testament to his strength, and also the fact that I think there was real love there, and he just probably couldn't find, you know, a replacement. Maybe I'm romanticizing it, you think? But anyway, that is the story of Etienne at the end. Now, to find out more about the Demers family, you might want to check out the series of books, Our French-Canadian Ancestors. This volume is number 25. If your library doesn't have it, you might want to consider looking at Our Free French-Canadian Ancestors. It's a Facebook group. You sign on and you'll be given the rights to be able to download the information and have a look at this biographical sketch that is found in volume 25, chapter 6, in pages 55 to 65, and I provided the link for you as well. And so ends our tale of Francoise. What a story. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. She basically came to New France, got married, lost her husband, had to, you know, get married right away to another man who happened to be a very good one. And then she herself loses her life before, you know, before the 1666 census. I've never done the story of a fille mariée who didn't make it to at least one of the censuses. So it was pretty, you know, she came, she saw, she conquered. We are so grateful to Francoise for having the courage, for making the journey, for doing what she did. She didn't give up. She didn't return to France after the death of her first husband. She found another husband and made a family. We are so ever, ever so grateful. And I wish she could have lived longer. But thankfully, she was able to do what she did and create a family that would create the legacy. And like I've said, the Demers family, very, very strong, even in today. I've gone to school with people with the last name Demers, so I know the name has thrived. And so with that being said, I want to thank my patrons and supporters and subscribers. You all are amazing. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you do for me. I appreciate it. And with that being said, I will say au revoir until I see you on the next episode. Au revoir.